guys don't know, Mike, well, if you saw last week, what was it about?
It was
Process and goals.
Yes.
If you saw that episode, that was Michael Wright. Okay, he is the guy. I call him Coach Mike. He's a big guy on process, and he's big on setting processes instead of goals, and then making sure that the daily actions are consistent with what you're trying to map things out to. Mm-hmm. And so he sent us a video today.
Yeah.
And it was about, there was a guy, he's a Stoic. I don't know a whole bunch about.
No, I mean, that's the first time we see it, yeah.
But so the guy in the video, he was pretty much talking about habits, like, because it was getting ready for the new year, things that, there are certain habits to keep and certain things to let go of. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting because in that, a lot of it we've talked about.
Yes. Yes, that was the fun part about it.
And a lot of like he would mention something. He would mention like a habit, and then he would say where it came from, like it was like Socrates or Aristotle or whatever. But essentially everything that he said is written in Proverbs. Yeah. Between Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, he hasn't said anything new.
No.
And I thought it was really interesting because Mike wanted to know what we thought about it. And so as I said, I'm like, it's interesting how we can have, we have wisdom that lasts the test of time, and all people have done for centuries is just reword it or expand upon a point.
Yes.
And then now we see it, we hear it again, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is so profound. You know?
Like it's the first time it was ever thought of.
Right. Like this man is a genius because he must have came up with this.
Man, how did he pull all that together? You know?
Yeah. It's wild.
And just for the record, the guy that we're talking about, he admits that all this came from time. He studied these different philosophers and all this time. And so he wasn't taking credit for himself, which I liked. He was just pulling it together, applying it to life, and saying, hey, this is how you become successful. But to the point you said, Proverbs, the Bible, nothing's new under the sun.
No. Look, and like I was telling you before we started rolling, like I've read a bunch of books. I've listened to a lot of speakers. I've watched a lot of videos. I've consumed a bunch of information. And I've also done, not, I guess, a whole bunch, but about 25 years worth of living.
Yes.
And so I've experienced a few things, all right?
Yeah, well, it's not, and that time, that 25 years, whether it's 70, whatever, it's the quality of those years and what you were doing with them. Because a lot of times, I mean, just a side note, people can waste their time and waste their years. So I think just the way you wired and the way you cut, you want to maximize your time and your years. And I feel that way too. Time is a commodity.
Definitely.
But hey, so how are we going to dig into this though? I mean, you kind of set the premise. Why should people even care about what we're talking about today? And because going through that, it gave me this sense of our strain, like of urgency to say, I need to change some things. So what did it do to you?
Well, I think on Mike's point, when the reason for him sending it and what he said afterwards is, it all comes down to your habits. It all comes down to the processes that you can consistently uphold. And I think that you're gonna get something. If you're gonna get something, that's what it is. Yeah. Because everything. Look. So when you go through Proverbs, the word that is repeated. I don't know if it's the most times, but it's the one that's most associated with riches. Okay. Diligence. And diligence, keen awareness, keen perception. It's about being sharp, right? And so the diligence, also the other part of diligence is energetic effort, consistent energetic effort. So to be successful,
you have to be diligent.
You have to be diligent.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that thing day in and day out.
So you need to be diligent and disciplined in what you're doing. And this is a great piggyback off what we talked about before. We talked about what do you do when you reach your goal. When the three of us all got together in that podcast. Yeah. So, and this is kind of, I think even in the video we watched, it's not about goal setting.
Right.
Because it's okay to have a target but it's about what you said, the habits, the discipline, the diligence, and following those things.
Yeah, I think so. You set the goal, which is your vision for what you're trying to do, and I think that's important to have because you gotta. I mean, before you start shooting, you gotta understand what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
And so you set the goal, but that's something you write down. All right, I'm gonna check in with that.
Where am I? How am I getting closer or further? What's going on? Yeah.
But the thing that you're looking at every single day is the process to get to that.
Yes. So with that said, if you have a goal without having a solid process, will you ever even reach your goal?
Haphazardly. I mean, there's just no way unless you just somehow serendipitously
just trip into it.
You just trip into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and it has to be, and that means that your goal was so small.
Yeah, that you could actually
that
fall
you could just fall into it.
Yeah, and well, here let's give a. I'm thinking about an example in my head. Okay. A number of people, and I don't think you will run into anyone that's not there already, want to be rich. A number of people will want to have an abundance of money. Okay.
Or, I think I love that you said that because it's crazy to me when like you'll hear. It used to be like a big thing where, oh, if you are poor, then you're holy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Those are associated somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
So like there would be the people that's like, oh man, I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. We gotta understand this term, this riches, like this abundance. Right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you can do everything that you want to do.
Correct.
and after everything that you need.
Correct. So it doesn't. So that just to define, I think, get a little bit for what you said. You can be comfortable and be able to do everything you want, but by the world standard, you might not be considered rich.
Yeah.
But so riches is not defined on your bank account so much as what you just said, described as like, are you able to do everything you want to do? It's perspective. Yeah. And I bring this example up because when you talk to most people, a lot of times it's like, hey, I want A, B, C, and D. I want the ride. I want all the other stuff. And the place where I was going with this is like the lottery. So the jackpot gets to, I don't know, it got some crazy over $1 billion here, like not too long ago. And everybody's like, boom, 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 because they want that opportunity to have this windfall, trip into their goal, trip into this goal of having a lot of money. But they not following the process. There's no discipline in that. It's just walking up to the cashier saying, "Hey, give me 20 quick picks," and that's their process.
Yeah.
And I always think about it, I'm like, if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the process laid out, you really have no foundation to even keep what you get when you trip into it.
Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I think that's what God wants everybody to get to. I think that's what he wants us to understand.
Yeah.
Look, it's crazy because we talk about the athletes who, they're childhood superstars, and they go get this ginormous contract, multi-million-dollar contract, and then as soon as they're out of the league, they go broke.
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't know how to build it. They're on their own. They don't know the foundations and the fundamentals of finances. If I shoot this ball into that hoop, then those people will pay me, and all I need to do is go to practice.
Correct.
Beyond that.
So really the process that they're following is about keeping the athletic skills up, not about keeping the money that they earn.
Right. And the same thing with the people with the lottery.
Yeah.
I know I go to the store and I scratch this thing, and then I could potentially win. And if I do win, a lot of those people go broke. Yeah. A lot of those people run into a lot of issues in life, like mentally, physically, spiritually, all kinds of different issues, because they don't know how to. One, they've never learned how to build it up for their self, and so pretty much they just have it. And so the ball game is how slowly can I spend all of it?
Correct. You're absolutely right. How to hold on to it versus having a way to. Because if you don't understand how to handle what you have, when you get more, you just have more to mishandle. I mean, it's like a kid. I use myself as an example, and I might have used this before too. So when I was in first year in college, my dad got me a job at this box factory where he worked at. I was cutting grass before that. I worked, cleaned up the school. Made what I call gas money and go out with your buddies. This is like, I'm 18. So I go in here and it's a union shop. And basically, so you're getting paid the same thing that anybody else would come in. So it's a nice for 1985. I'm coming home, $400 a week in my pocket. After taxes. Oh, I'm like living. I'm like Johnny Kemp on Friday. Just got paid Friday night. The point I'm getting at is that I wasn't used to having that much money. So I was out Friday night on the weekends. We partying.
I'm balling now.
We balling, yeah, we balling. Buy some clothes, buy some things. So I was not managing my money. Okay, parents like, hey, you need to save, da da da. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like saving this amount. Well, they had to intervene because I was out of control. So say this: if I was 18 and someone threw $2 million in front of me.
Ooh-wee.
I didn't know how to handle it. I would have blew it. And that's the same concept we're talking about now. If you're not prepared to handle whatever success looks like for you or whatever, that goal looks like, you're going to lose it. I mean, you really are. When we're talking about these habits and all that, builds that foundation.
It's dangerous to, I think I said this before. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but Mike Tyson one time, he said, a curse that might be put on you by God is to have everything that you've ever wanted right now when you want it, and then seeing what you do with it after.
You need to say that. You need to say that again. People need to absorb what you just said.
Seriously. Mike Tyson, I quote Mike Tyson, he said, a curse from God could be him giving you everything that you've ever wanted as soon as you want it, and then seeing what you do with it. Because that...
Yeah, and you talked about, I think, the windfalls and how people win the lottery, how they have mental issues, they have all these other things going. Because when you live in your life thinking that this one thing is going to make you happy, this one thing is going to solve all your problems, and that goes back to the Mike Tyson quote, like, you get everything that you hoped for, right. And when you get it, you realize it becomes a bigger burden.
Oh, yeah. Because, like, it's funny, they say, like... the money, all it does when you have more of it, it just highlights more of who you are already.
I could see that. Yeah. So if you
were bad with money with $10,
you're gonna be bad with money
with $10 million.
And if your attitude's wrong with $10, it's gonna be even worse.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably an amplifier. It's probably an amplifier. It just cranks whatever up.
100% is an amplifier, because it's like, okay, so you were getting $18 an hour, and then you spent 10% of it at fast food joints. You spent 15% of it at the strip club. You spent 30% of it on stuff you don't even know about, on subscriptions.
Yeah.
And then you got $1 million, and this money the percentages stay the same.
They do. But it goes, you started out talking about wisdom and Proverbs. So I know everybody's like, well, how does it deal with God? Well, wisdom comes from God.
100%.
And wisdom, going through the whole thing, requires you, or will lead you to developing a process. Will lead you to be developing habits, and will help you and guide you to be ready for what God has for you. And when we leave God out of it, it's a man-made process. It's a man-made plan. It's man-made goals, and it's gonna go to the world. It's not gonna bring that joy, when you get it.
I think, and this is gonna bake your noodles here. The whole. Okay, a lot of people were understanding the Bible. We're trying to understand the principles. We're understanding the wisdom, so that we can do the things, so we can have the things that God says is afforded to us, and so that we can be the people that He's called us to be. Essentially, the book is trying to give you the information. I believe it's trying to give you the information so that you can become the type of creature that fits in to the kingdom. Okay? Yeah. And so the only way you can become that creature is to build the habits around the principles that He already laid out.
Yeah, you hitting it right on the head, because let's think about church. Okay. First, let's talk about God's church, the way it's designed. Acts, hey, there's no denominations. There's none of that. It's like, hey, go out, spread my word, make disciples of all nations, do this, okay?
Yep.
Fellowship, come together, do the work, serve. And using the model that Jesus used with the disciples, where he had 12 disciples, he poured into them, they learned from him, then they were trained to go out and do that. So the church is about serving, training, and getting people out to spread the word. There's a process to that.
Definitely.
There's a process. Okay. And it's been mapped out in his word.
There's a process for you staying alive. There's a process for your blood flowing down your veins.
Yes.
God made a bunch of processes that created the universe.
He did.
And it's still going today.
It's still going. It's still going. And so it's like when we talk about that, when you get away from, when you don't understand that and you don't follow the word of God, you're going to have a broken process. Mm-hmm. Even though it might look like it's giving you everything that you asked for, but that one piece you talked about, the Mike Tyson piece, it will never give you contentment. It will never give you full joy because you're always going to strive for more. And to another point you made too, it don't mean that we're poor or we need to be poor financially. Mm-hmm. It's not. God don't say that. He don't say that you need to be poor. I
don't believe we're meant to be.
No, we're not. We're not meant to be poor. It's that, we have to understand what process we need to be following based on what God tells us to do. Like for you, God's giving you a vision, okay? And I know you're gonna obtain that vision because you creating, you're letting God develop that process. He's giving me a vision. He's giving Mike a vision. He's giving a number of people visions who we talk about often, and it's no accident that we all work together, that we know each other, because we're a part of the same unit, but we got different roles he's going to have us fill. But the habits, the process, you got to keep going. And being patient don't mean you stop working. You got to stick to the process.
Definitely. And I think another point, going back a little bit, you were talking about being a manager. Mm-hmm. The garden, Genesis 1. Mm-hmm. So we got God made men in His image. Mm-hmm. Okay, go to the next chapter. There was Adam, and there was the garden. Mm-hmm. And Adam's job was to pretty much cultivate this garden and manage it, to take care of it. Yeah. And then this garden, okay, the territory that he had, there was one area first, Eden. He was supposed to cultivate this area and then expand that area. Mm-hmm. Okay, take over, subdue, have dominion over the whole planet. Yes. Okay, he had to be good at this one. Yes. To expand to the next one. Yes. To expand to the next one.
Right. Yeah.
We're called to be managers. We're called to be extremely good managers.
Yes. And you cannot manage well if you're not disciplined, if you're not diligent, and you do not have a process.
How do seeds die? If I'm trying to plant a seed to grow an apple tree, I need to water it. I need to nurture it. I need to be consistently taking care of it. Because if I don't, or say I'm just so excited about it, I throw it in the ground, put some water on it, put all the fertilizer with it too, and then don't come back to it for a year.
It won't exist. I mean, and taking that another step, just for, okay, maybe people don't want to grow apple tree, but most of us have plants at home. If you don't water that plant, if you don't feed that plant will die. Yeah. If you don't nurture it, if you don't, everything you just said, you have to manage that plant.
I think it's crazy because, so like you King Solomon, people would come speak to him. They would come, get his advice and everything, but he was an expert on nature. That's what he talked about. But nature, I think, also mirrors exactly how we accomplish anything. Just like the seed and the sower.
There you go. All right, but bring it together. Go ahead. All right, I see where you're going.
If you set your goal, right, you cannot accomplish it. You can't get it to the tree without all of the steps that go into growing it. So to be hasty, Proverbs again, to be hasty just means that you're only going to end in one. Yeah. Literally, that's what the word says.
Yes.
And so like it's written over and over and over again, and it's every single story. The way that God wants you to be is He wants you to be a responsible manager that can uphold a process that He gave you consistently.
Yes. And it's interesting you bring up Solomon, because I think there's a couple of things we can take from Solomon. First of all, he asked God for wisdom.
Boom.
So wisdom. So understand, if you heard nothing else, wisdom comes from God.
Definitely.
Wisdom comes from Him.
Proverbs chapter what?
There you go. So the other part of Solomon, which I don't know if everybody really know, because Solomon drifted away from God's plan. I mean, Solomon had a crazy amount of wives. And then he had a whole nother group of concubines. I don't even know how he managed all that. It's crazy to me. But the point though is that he brought people into his world, these wives, from other religions, other beliefs, and it tainted him.
Yeah.
His view. So he lost track of what God's what God's vision was for him per se, and started going after these pagan type things. So God gave him wisdom. He had success. Probably the richest person, one of them anyway, that we've ever known in the universe. Okay. And then if you read, he realized all that was nothing because God wasn't in it.
Ecclesiastes. Boom.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. He did. So, I mean, so what did it tell you? It's not about the wealth, not about none of that. It's like, if you leave God out of it, you're going to have an empty hole.
Definitely. That's crazy. Another interesting part of that whole thing is like you were talking about all of the wives and concubines and all of them, and you talk about managing it. When you have too many inputs, there's no way you can manage.
You're right. So that's a great point. You're right.
He's got this lady talking about her religion and the guys that she serves. He's like, oh, okay, that might be interesting too. And then you got another input over here, and it's like, oh, there's also the God of prayer. There's also the God of the sun, and there's also the God of the grass. What do you know about that? And then he's like, oh, okay, well maybe this is. Have you ever had an idea? Okay, you ever had an idea? You marked out all the things that you want to do. You got a vision for what you're trying to accomplish, and then you got someone's opinion coming right here, and he says, well, maybe you should try this. Okay, all right, I might add that into this. And then you have someone else who's like, well, maybe it could be better if you did this as well. Oh, okay, maybe I'll add this in. And then 5 more people tell you about how you should do this thing differently than the way you had planned out to do it in the first place. And now you've got so much on this list that you can't even start.
Ooh, that sounds like my life. but isn't that? I mean, we battle that, and I think it comes down to the filters.
Yeah.
And what you're describing, I mean, you laid it out, but if we honestly sit back, there are all these voices always feeding us something.
Oh yeah, everybody's got the latest. Everybody knows the information. Everybody's a guru.
but okay, so you got your business, you're a videographer, right? And I play around with videos a little bit. But the point though is this: if I come say, hey, Marta, you should, have you looked into this and doing this, whatever. And you're a nice guy. You probably be like, you'll listen to him, but you're like, he don't know what you're talking about. Because you know what I mean? But
another thing about me personally, like if someone gives me something and that I didn't already know about, I might at least look at it.
Well, no, you do. You listen. But the point I'm getting at is this: is that we get these inputs. You've been doing something all your life, and you got somebody that walk in that's been doing it 5 seconds, and it's going to tell you how you should be doing what you've been doing forever. Not that you don't listen. But the point though is that you got to be careful with the inputs that you take. Like you say, you'll listen. If it's something you hadn't heard, you're like, okay, boom, your ears go up, and that's art. But when you got people coming in and they're like coming at you like they're authority in something, if you try to listen to everybody that does that, it will take you off your track. That's all I'm saying, and that's where that discernment comes in. And I think that's where we got to watch. Using Solomon as those inputs, like you said, can flood you. And if you don't have discernment, if you don't allow God to help you filter all that, you will be off, lose your process, create bad habits, and miss your target all day long.
I think that's part of the reason why God didn't give you every talent.
Yes.
He didn't make you an expert He didn't give you the gift to do everything.
No,
You're supposed to do a couple things. You're supposed to do it very well, to the best of your ability.
Yep.
And then in those areas, you will see that success.
Correct.
But if you try to do everything, you end up with nothing.
Exactly. And man, can we go back and maybe hit some of these points at least later so people can kind of watch the inputs that's coming your way.
Yep.
You got to watch that. First of all, you got to develop a process of habits that will lead you to your goal. And I think the first thing that we all got to do is go to God and ask him for direction and wisdom in putting together that plan and that process. Anything else you can think of that we need to focus on when you talk about, the habits, having a good habit. But I don't know, this is not a goal discussion, but what else do we need to key on that somebody can take away and say, okay, these are some of the things I need to target to try to get my process tight, try to make sure I'm going in the right direction, try to make sure I'm heading down the path that God has for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we want to just break this down into a few steps because we don't want too many inputs.
Correct. Yeah. We don't want to flood you with us. Yeah.
The thing is, seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. God already wrote down the game plan, the blueprint, the roadmap, whatever you want to call it, to anything that you want to accomplish. Okay, whether you realize that or not. You might be saying, "Well, I want a new iPhone. I don't see iPhone in the Bible," but you want to be able to communicate.
Yes.
Or you need more income so that you can actually buy the thing that you're trying to buy. It's already written.
Yep. And that iPhone, I mean, that iPhone's a tool.
And an iPhone is a tool.
Yep. I mean, you do a lot of things from your phone. He doesn't have an iPhone though. But that's
not
right. Don't hate on him. He's not an iPhone hater. But
right.
He doesn't have an iPhone. But the point though, that's a tool.
That's a tool. So figure out what you want. Okay. What do you want? Like what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Pray about it. Really pray about it. And I mean, of course, there's making sure that you understand who you are and your own makeup. Self-reflection is a huge part of everything that you do.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's self-reflect. What am I good at? What am I capable of doing, and what might I be able to do pretty well if I work on it? Check in with God. What is his vision for my life? Okay, and then sit down and then think about what you want. Like, what is it that you want? That's in alignment. I mean, you don't say that like I want to rob 5 banks this year, right? That doesn't work. Sit down and really visualize what you want in accordance with what the Bible says is all right to have, okay? And what you are afforded in it. There are pages that tell you all the things that you should be able to have, right? So get that down and then go ahead and find exactly how to do it inside of the Bible. And then this is one that I've had to work on. It's like you almost don't even want to set a timeline for it because you don't really know.
It's funny you say that because I don't know if you remember going back talking about Mike again. When the 3 of us first started, which it goes back to I think August, but anyway, first started getting on the call. That was something he kind of said. That he was like, he didn't really have a timeline to hit some of those targets.
Yeah.
Remember that?
It's almost like you probably just more so want to just do milestones.
Yes, and I think, and that's a good point. Go ahead and finish, but I think it's key with what you're saying as far as the timeline. So break that down for everybody too when you say that, because I think it is the milestone piece.
Yeah. So when you put out this vision and you decide what you want, and I feel like a lot of people don't actually think about what they really, really want.
Yeah,
I think it's a really important thing because there's life and death in the power of the tongue, as you see in your heart. So is he. So like if you don't ever actually take the time to decide what you want, like what that looks like in your day-to-day life, like what do you want to drive, like what is your relationship status, where do you want to live, like all this other stuff. That's important.
It is.
Once you figure that out, then you can start to figure out, okay, how to do it. How does this thing get accomplished? But what we were talking about in terms of the timeline is like, if you said, okay, I'm going to get a 2,000 square foot home and I'm gonna get it in 3 days. Now in your head, you might be so optimistic that you think it's just gonna happen. I'm gonna pray about it every day for these 3 days.
It's going to
and this is supposed to happen. And then you get to those 3 days and you're upset with God because you didn't get that house you were looking for.
Yeah.
You prayed about it, right? You prayed about it. You set the vision. You wrote it down, and you didn't get it. But That's not how God works.
No. He got his own timetable.
He got his own timetable. But what you can do is you can go to that book that tells you about how to get all of those things accomplished. Like how you can
Bible, right?
It's the Bible. You heard of it?
I heard of it. Bestseller.
I think it's on everywhere that you can get a book. So get one. And then you figure out exactly how to get this thing. But then this is the crazy part. Traditionally, in the world, they say to set the goal and you just mark out the times, be really specific about the timing for it, and then you go get it, and then you feel upset when you don't get it. But more so in the frame of the Bible, we become diligent about those process steps on how to do it, and do those. Wake up every day and figure out how you're gonna get these things accomplished, and then once you get to a certain point where you say, "Oh, I've gotten closer." Mark that progress, because once you put the timeline on it, now you're out of the context of the Bible. You're not.
Well, yeah, and I think you're right. And you're trying to take control.
You're trying to take too much control, right? You don't control all the outcomes.
No, and I think it's controlling how you lay it out like that. And I think it's important to understand as you go through that process you described, and you because you want to study, you want to learn, you want to pray, you're getting closer to God. So the closer you get to God, the more you start to understand what His purpose is for you.
Boom.
Then you start to understand that, hey, you know what? He's fitting this puzzle together for us. And I said this a few times before, where when we follow God, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And if you ever put a jigsaw puzzle together, you can't see the picture, but you can start to see where some pieces fit.
Yes.
And it takes a little time before you start to see. You might see a hand, you might start to see the sky. And it takes a while for everything to work together, but it feels right when you plug it in. So you know you're on the right path, but you still haven't seen the big picture yet.
Yeah.
So following the Bible and following God is like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to start putting it, and He gives you the pieces, you put them together. Now you can take a piece and try to force it in, but you mess up the whole picture at that point.
And crazy, you might try to force that piece in, and then still move on to the next piece.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing's still gonna be wrong.
And you can have half of it right, and the other half messed up, and you never will get the full picture.
You never will get the full picture. Yeah. And again, going back to that whole process, because God can see the full picture, and He knows the pieces that He's given you. And if you are not diligent with the pieces that He's given you, you don't get to the point where you can start seeing the picture.
Yes.
And He can see the whole picture, but you cannot. All you have are the pieces.
Yep. And He might not, and it's a chance He won't even give you the rest of the pieces because you're not putting the ones He gave you together. Right?
Exactly. You done twisted this around. You tried to jam this one next to this one. And so He's like, all right, let's just wait until we figure that out.
Yeah, let's just step back. Let's just step back. Okay, you ain't ready yet.
And then now you upset because you keep praying and God ain't did nothing. You feel like, but He already gave you the pieces.
He has,
and you just wasn't good with them. You never fit those in the right way.
And I think to the point we're making here, God's given us the pieces to this whole puzzle. It's in the Bible. Now it's not gonna be like your situation. Not gonna be laid out like for you to have a successful business, you do A, B, C, and D.
Go to Martell verse 1.
Yeah, it just tell you how to do it. No, it's about the concept. It's about Proverbs. It's about wisdom. It's about make sure Christ is first, all these different things that you have to line up in your life to get those pieces to the puzzle to make your life the way it needs to be. So it's I love this discussion because it's being the first part of the year. And I know you guys think that we sit down and we have a good conversation, but at the same time, it's feeding me as well. I mean, I'm energized. Same. I'm 2023. I just see so much coming, but I got to follow the process.
Yeah, that's the message.
Yeah,
that's the point. That's the point. There's definitely a lot in this that we're gonna pick up on.
Definitely.
But I think that's the episode for today.
You know what? And let's put Mike on blast too. We need to get Mike back around the table with us.
Definitely.
Too. Yeah,
definitely.
We do. I don't know. We might
expect to see him.
Yes, expect to see him, and give him some pressure. If you see him like Mike, they want you back.
Right, hit him up. Send him a text message right now.
Yeah.
Say, hey, get on the podcast.
Exactly.
But yeah, so great discussion. I appreciate it. This dude is. Let's just shout out Pastor Rodney Kemp. I think he's just an awesome dude. I think in terms of principles, in terms of manhood, in terms of being a doer. and being a good person, I just want to first just give this guy his flowers. He's just an awesome person. And if you guys don't know him, I think you want to go ahead and get to know him.
Well, I'm going to pay Martell later for that. I appreciate that. But that's God, you see. I mean, not me. But I'm going to shower some flowers on you too, my friend, because this man has helped push me out of my comfort zone. He's taught me a lot and continue to do so. So when they say iron sharpen iron, and that's what we talk about Mike too.
Oh yeah.
This is God got a plan.
Definitely.
And I'm glad that you are part of the plan he has in my life and vice versa. So I appreciate what you said, but I can say just the same thing to you as well too, my friend. And hey, today for tomorrow, just be on the cutting edge right now, because down the road, as God grows this, you can be like, I remember them jokers when they first started.
Yeah, they was in the dining room, I think, this morning.
yeah. Now they done blew up, but we always gonna be who we be. But thank you,
Definitely.
sir. Thank you.
Just keep an eye on the backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You'll understand what's going on here.
But that's the episode for today. This has been the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Again, I'm Martell.
I'm Pastor Rod.
We hope to see y'all next week.
Peace.